is a resolution to authorize execution of a subrecipient agreement with Cook County for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program.
This item comes out of the Department of Economic Development and Planning, and it's a real good news item for the village. I'll defer to Hildy Kingma as the director to walk the board through what this is, what it's going to do for us, and what we believe the village's costs will be. Hildy, if you will.
Yep. First of all, a little background. If you recall, I believe it was in 2010, the village received grant money from the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, Cook County's Neighborhood Stabilization Program, that we've partnered with Habitat for Humanity on the purchase and rehabilitation of single-family homes for sale to qualified income home buyers. We also received $88,000 from Cook County's NSP program for the demolition of 9 homes on Allegheny Street. This grant money is coming from the same source, NSP 1, if you will, and this opportunity came about earlier this spring when the mayor and the village manager went to Washington. I believe it was with the Southcom delegation. And in a meeting with HUD, we learned that there were significant amounts of funds still available with both Cook County and the state of Illinois from the NSP 1 program. These are funds that were initially allocated at the same time the village of Park Forest received its allocation. They were allocated to other municipalities in Cook County, and those municipalities, I don't know which they are, but they were not, for one reason or another, unable to use their funds. So if the funds are not used by February 28th of 2013, they will be sent back to Washington, D.C., and they will not be available for use in this area. So when the mayor and village manager learned this, we got right on it and sent in a request to Cook County for funds to demolish 3200 Lincoln Highway, which is the old Z1 Honda building in our transit-oriented development area. Norwood Square Shopping Center, which, as you recall, we will have the deed to by mid-September once again. 350 Main Street, which is the small 10,000 square foot commercial building right across the street from Village Hall in the downtown. And 320 Wildwood Street, which is the old Wildwood School. All of these buildings the village owns, or in the case of Norwood Square, is about to own. So for that reason, because we can demolish them quickly because we already own them, and because also Cook County informed us that they know that the Village of Park Forest has the capability and the track record of spending money efficiently and wisely. You know, the good work that the Department of Public Works did on the demolition of the Marshall Fields building, for example, proved that the Village of Park Forest is able to do this in a very expeditious fashion. We only have from now until February 28th to get this money spent. The building's down. There's also $150,000 in this pot of money. And for the public, the pot of money is $1,550,000. So it's a significant grant to demolish those 4 commercial buildings and approximately 13 more residential buildings. We have not identified the residential homes yet, but we will be working on that this week. We are also working with Baxter and Woodman to prepare an engineering services agreement to write the demolition specs, and we will bring that to you next week for your consideration. Again, we have to move very quickly on this, but we have to follow all of the federal and Cook County steps and requirements. So we will have to go out to bid for the demolition. We're using our existing engineering consultant to do the demolition specs, and but we will have to bring that engineering services agreement to you. So we do have to follow all those steps. So, you know, as we proceed through this, we hope that demolition will begin by December 1st at the very latest, earlier than that if we can make it happen.
Very good. Thank you, Hildy. This is good news. And I think it's good news for a couple of reasons. One is it also underscores that, you know, the value of some of the efforts that we put into when you know, we go to Washington on lobbying trips, or we go to Las Vegas on the shopping center convention, and sometimes we don't see that immediate return, and it gets kind of discouraging, and it's kind of like, have we, put our talents and time and efforts and money into the best use, and then after the fact, we find something that does materialize. When the manager and I heard about this in Washington when we were meeting with HUD, we were really somewhat surprised because we had no idea that HUD had a program like this. You may recall that some years ago, we were beneficiaries of a similar kind of program that the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency had. We had requested a low-interest loan to build our water plant, and we were told, no money is available. And then through the good efforts of Senator Maggie Crotty and the then head of the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, Renee Cipriano, we learned that they had what they called an override fund, and that was money that had been allocated for various projects and had not been used, and therefore was available to give to communities that had the need. No one had told us about that until we met with the director, and she made us aware of it. And it's the same thing is true here. No one had ever told us about the availability of this money that had been allocated by HUD but had not been used by the communities and therefore went back into the pool until we went to Washington and we found out in this trip. So it kind of underscores that there's a lot of benefits that are accrued from these efforts, some of which are immediate, and we're always pleased when that happens, but some of which are just little tips and clues and things of that sort that then later we can put to use. So I think this is of great value to us. We have now acquired a lot of outside funding to enable us to remove buildings that are blights to our community, buildings, homes, and other structures that are no longer capable of any good commercial or residential use, and now we can remove those, and as soon, when the economy turns around, that property is viable property for redevelopment, et cetera. So we're looking forward to that. Trustee Brandon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, it is, once I heard about it, I was like ecstatic. I was ready to do cartwheels because it really means a lot. Number one, if we had to wait until we had money to do this, it would be several years down the road, several years. By being able to demolish these properties that are really eyesores to the community, and we get a lot of calls and questions from residents about them. That in and of itself is a plus. And then it also makes the property much more valuable to someone who's looking for a project, because they then themselves do not have to deal with the extra expense of getting rid of a building that is no longer useful to anyone. So it's really a plus. And the other thing is that, this kind of thing, it really shows the benefits of doing some long-range planning that the village has always been very good about doing, and having projects ready. So with Public Works and our economic development and other managers as well, through having the long-range planning set up and things that you're looking towards, when money becomes available, there's not the time, that you have to take and say, okay, now how can we use it? Because we already know where the money can be used. And I think that's another good reputation that the village has gotten, is that we often have ready-to-go projects. So when money is available, then we can make a move on that. So I think a good job our managing staff is doing of keeping that plan going.
Yeah, and just to add to that, without getting into a lot of detail, I was told by someone from one of the agencies that has worked with the village in awarding projects to us, that this individual said that someone from another community said something on the order of, why is Park Forest always getting funded? And the response was, because they're always ready to go. And I think that's a compliment to our staff and also to the board. The board has set the policy, set the goals in place so that the staff knows what it is that we want to accomplish. And then the staff is ready with these things. So when something comes along, we don't have to do a lot of the research, as you say, and all the backup. And then I think the other thing that hopefully when the economy does turn around, the added benefit is going to be to potential developers that dealing with the village is much easier than having to go through a private sales person and then the village for whatever code, et cetera, because we're going to make sure the properties are ready to go when development can take place. So it's a win for everybody all the way around. It's just good to be able to make use of this.